The story begins by defining an exorcist, someone who banishes evil spirits, as a mysterious figure in traditional Japanese garb stands with prayer beads in hand. A close-up reveals the determined face of the man, spattered with blood from a recent battle. His name is Gatsuji. His partner, a nonchalant woman in a bunny girl outfit, chides him for his gloomy mood while smoking a cigarette. She remarks that her own attire isn't exactly helping the vibe either. A client gratefully welcomes the two exorcists, Gatsuji and Yuruka, to a traditional estate, their reputation apparently preceding them. As they walk, Yuruka impatiently hurries Gatsuji along. Meanwhile, an elderly woman, the client, timidly asks them if the claims on their flyer are true, to which Gatsuji simply replies, yes. Yuruka elaborates, confirming that they travel all over the country to resolve paranormal phenomena, and every word on their flyer is true. Gatsuji, drawing his sword slightly, adds a grim condition to their service. If they find an evil spirit, their job is simply to cut it down, and nothing more. The scene cuts to a definition of an evil spirit, a mass of resentment that attacks humans out of vengeance, claiming 10,000 victims every year. Later, inside the inn, the mood is lighter. Yuruka is casually reading a manga when Gatsuji tells her not to make fun of the classic series, One Piece. Yuruka explains she's only reading it because a friend insisted, and that she's impressively caught up. However, she reveals her unfamiliarity with the series by asking about devil fruits, leading a frustrated Gatsuji to tell her to just stop reading. In what appears to be a flashback or a different exorcism, a battle-worn Gatsuji sits exhausted against a wall, the grotesque remains of a defeated spirit slumping beside him. He mutters to himself about how tired he is. Back in the present, their manga discussion continues, with Gatsuji asking about the swordsman Zoro. Yuruka's attention shifts as her senses pick up on the supernatural, stating that the inn is swarming with spirits and that she will lend him a hand. As Gatsuji walks off while discussing fan theories, Yuruka yells after him for more details on One Piece. The elderly innkeeper overhears the commotion and apologizes for the shouting. The innkeeper asks why such young people would get into their line of work. Yuruka explains with a smile that it's a family business, as both she and Gatsuji come from Shinto priest families, much to the old woman's surprise. Yuruka admits she tried running away from her family duties once. Gatsuji's expression turns serious as he adds that now he is simply tagging along for someone else's vendetta. A somber panel shows Gatsuji sitting alone. The blood splatters on the wall behind him mirroring the dark path he's chosen, driven by this mysterious vendetta. The story shifts to a flashback. A man is desperately calling for Yuruka, saying she has an exorcism to perform and that she's only gotten worse since her sister passed away. We see a young Yuruka in a school uniform, looking pensive. The scene introduces a younger Gatsuji, with a patch on his cheek. He greets someone with a casual yo, as an off-panel voice remarks that he's a far cry from the esteemed son of the Gatsuji family. Young Yuruka playfully pokes the patch on Gatsuji's cheek, trying to get his attention. She chides him for not facing her and mentions his father is looking for him, but he dismissively brushes it off, calling his father stuck in the past. Yuruka expresses her disinterest in their traditional world, complaining that spirituality and ancient traditions have nothing on modern entertainment like subscription services. The two sit together on a staircase, with Gatsuji engrossed in a manga. Yuruka teases him about being hooked on it, showing a glimpse of their close, comfortable friendship in the past. Looking towards the future, young Yuruka dreamily talks about graduating, moving out, and finally living a little. She lists off all the things she wants to do, like going clubbing and picking up new hobbies, expressing a deep desire for freedom. She playfully shakes Gatsuji, calling him Mr. All Black to get his attention. But her tone quickly turns serious as she asks a heavy question. So, you're gonna keep looking, huh? Looking up with quiet determination, the young Gatsuji gives a simple, resolute answer, confirming he will continue his search. Yeah, pretty much. The scene shifts to a memory of Yuruka's sister, Irika. The dialogue reveals the core of Gatsuji's mission. The specific spirit that killed Irika was never exorcised and is still out there, killing people. The flashback continues, returning to the conversation between the younger Gatsuji and Yuruka. He reminds her that the next day is the anniversary of her sister's death and asks if she will visit the grave with her family. Yuruka deflects with a bitter comparison, asking if Gatsuji suddenly became a doctor when her sister died of cancer, a clear lie to push him away. She waves goodbye, telling him to take care of himself before walking down the stairs. A montage shows Yuruka after her sister's death. She tries to immerse herself in the life she once dreamed of, partying with friends, drinking at bars, but her expression remains distant and melancholic, showing that she can't escape her grief. The story snaps back to the present day at the inn. Yuruka asks about Gatsuji's injury, but he says he's fine and playfully questions if she lives on the moon, given her bunny outfit. She retorts that it's proper work attire, a first for him to hear. Yuruka's expression turns serious as she observes Gatsuji, noting his unwavering commitment to his quest. The scene briefly flashes to a gruesome memory of a spirit, highlighting the dark motivation behind his commitment. Yuruka confronts him directly, asking why, and for who. She argues that there's no payoff in what he's doing for her sister, Irika-san. With brutal honesty, Yuruka forces Gatsuji to face reality. She tells him that Irika is gone, murdered, and calls his endless quest hopeless. The panel cuts to Gatsuji's memory of visiting Irika in the hospital. Yuruka passionately explains what it means to truly honor the dead. She describes the process of grieving. They cried, cremated her, buried the ashes, and remembered her on her death day. To her, that is the proper way. She dismisses his actions not as honor, but as a dangerous obsession for which he is throwing his life away. Gatsuji can only utter her name in response. A vision of his younger self appears as Yuruka's voice echoes, asking if he is truly living his own life. He looks down, lost in thought. The scene returns to the innkeeper offering them a meal. Suddenly, a small, cartoonish-looking spirit pops up, and Gatsuji, without hesitation, slices through it with his sword. The spirit is instantly vanquished, splattering into black ink. From a nearby doorway, another simple, ghost-like creature peeks out curiously. As Gatsuji sits on the veranda, more simplistic, worm-like spirits begin to gather around him. But he remains unfazed, his expression grim. Gatsuji patrols the long, wooden corridors of the inn, the dilapidated structure hinting at the darkness lurking within. While Yuruka waits inside, Gatsuji stands outside, overwhelmed. He acknowledges that inns often attract spirits, but the sheer number present is unnatural. He suspects there must be a specific reason for such a large gathering. Back in the room, Yuruka grows impatient, wondering why Gatsuji is taking so long. She gets up, her bare feet padding against the floor as she decides to go find him. Just as Gatsuji is contemplating the situation, Yuruka appears at the end of the hallway. He remarks that she showed up at just the right time, perhaps because he was thinking about food, a topic she'd enjoy. Yuruka offers him a cigarette, but he declines, stating that secondhand smoke is enough for him. Since he lacks the ability to sense spirits himself, he tells her he's leaving that task to her, adding that he's sure their numbers are increasing. After making a crude joke about which is spreading faster, the spirits or syphilis, Yuruka is told to get to work. She closes her eyes and concentrates, using her powers to sense the spirits in the inn. A looming image of the terracotta army appears, serving as a powerful metaphor for the vast, silent, and imposing legion of spirits that Yuruka is sensing. Yuruka's eyes snap open with a startling intensity. She finds the sheer number of spirits almost laughable, but Gatsuji cuts her off, stating that how many there are isn't the right question to be asking. As they walk back down the corridor, Gatsuji announces with grim purpose that he needs to ask the innkeeper something. They find the innkeeper, who seems startled by their sudden appearance. Dropping all pretense of politeness, Gatsuji bluntly addresses her as old hag, shocking both the old woman and Yuruka. Gatsuji makes a chilling offer. He'll let her pension overpayments slide, but in return, she must answer his question. The old woman's face contorts in fear. With cold, piercing eyes, Gatsuji asks the terrifying question that cuts to the heart of the matter. How many people have you killed? The innkeeper stammers in disbelief, asking what he means by killed. Gatsuji lays out his cold logic. Evil spirits are born from grudges and resentment, and for so many to appear and specifically target her is no coincidence. As Gatsuji yells, "You hag!" one last time, the innkeeper finally breaks down. With tears streaming down her face, she confesses with a simple, "I'm sorry." Yuruka is shocked that Gatsuji is letting the innkeeper go after her confession. But he simply states that dealing with law books isn't his thing, his focus remaining on the supernatural threat, not human justice. Gatsuji continues, explaining his worldview. He doesn't know how to judge people or deliver verdicts upon them. He admits that it's not his purpose in life, but he draws a sharp distinction, his gaze fixed on the memory of Irika. While he cannot judge humans, he can judge an evil spirit without hesitation. He concludes with a quiet resolve, admitting he isn't good at much. But this one thing, the act of exorcising spirits, is something he can do. A heavy silence falls over the room. Yuruka and the now confessed innkeeper sit across from each other, the weight of the revealed truth hanging between them. Yuruka lights a cigarette and turns to the terrified old woman. She notes that Gatsuji has left, but tells her not to worry, calling him an idiot under her breath. Flashing back to Gatsuji visiting Irika's grave, Yuruka explains to the innkeeper that Gatsuji is likely doing all this for himself, for his own reasons. She elaborates on his beliefs. Gatsuji believes in the afterlife, in crossing the Sanzu River, and in being fulfilled by offerings. He believes in honoring the dead in a way that transcends the physical world. Yuruka makes it clear to the innkeeper that Gatsuji's true goal is to honor Irika. Therefore, his actions have nothing to do with saving her. His quest is entirely for his own satisfaction. It is his choice and his responsibility alone. The image of his determined younger self reinforces this point. The scene explodes into action. As Gatsuji slices through a spirit in a dynamic arc, Yuruka stands ready, her own blade drawn, prepared for battle. The battle rages. An injured Gatsuji checks on Yuruka amidst the chaos. Surrounded by countless spirits, she retorts that she's dead tired, reminding him this is why she said she would handle it alone. Yuruka stands defiantly, her back to Gatsuji, refusing to retreat from the overwhelming number of spirits. She turns back with a fierce look, shouting, "Not gonna happen." Her resolve is firm. She's not leaving his side. Leaping into the fray, she unleashes a powerful attack, demanding to know why Gatsuji thinks she came back in the first place. He yells at her to focus as she gets distracted. As Gatsuji readies his sword, he sees that the horde of smaller spirits has begun to coalesce into a single massive form right in front of him. Gatsuji cleaves the massive spirit in two. When Yuruka complains about him butting in, he quips back, "Never underestimate the power of bunnies," before telling her to stop complaining if they're half-naked. Fighting back to back, Yuruka observes that the spirits are surprisingly disorganized. Gatsuji agrees, and together they declare, "Yeah, we got this," ready to finish the fight. Their confidence is short-lived. Yuruka looks on in shock as Gatsuji announces, "They're merging. The defeated spirits are reforming into something new." As the spirits fuse, Gatsuji nervously wonders what form they'll take, an ogre or a snake. He mutters that if an ogre shows up, they're screwed. A truly monstrous being appears, a colossal fusion of spirits with a grotesque, grinning face and massive, wheel-like appendages. The sight is so horrifying that a speech bubble screams, "What the hell is that?" Yuruka groans in disgust at the sight. Gatsuji gravely explains the terrifying reality of their situation. Evil spirits become more complex as they grow stronger. This creature's intricate horror is a clear testament to its immense power. Stealing his resolve, Gatsuji thanks Yuruka for her assistance before declaring, "I'll take it from here." Ignoring her protests, he turns his full attention to the monster, prepared to face the ultimate threat alone and bring the battle to its end. With an intense, focused gaze, Gatsuji unleashes his final, powerful attack. A single, decisive slash aimed at the heart of the grotesque monster. The monster is utterly annihilated. Its fragmented pieces rain down from the sky over the ruined inn as Yuruka and the old woman watch the display. Amidst the wreckage, Yuruka asks if it's finally over. Gatsuji confirms it is, and she congratulates him. Their conversation immediately shifts to what to eat, and she suggests a hamburger, much to his surprise given his traditional getup. A quiet moment shows Gatsuji in profile, the dark remnants of the vanquished spirit splattered across his face and neck, a testament to the brutal fight. As they drive away from the inn at night, Gatsuji asks Yuruka for details about her hamburger craving. The scene flashes back to the innkeeper's full confession. Her husband was threatened by real estate goons, so she poisoned them when they stayed at her inn. In the car, Yuruka reflects that the spirit was tough. She then casually dismisses the innkeeper's tragic story, musing that it could have all been lies for all they knew. Yuruka's expression grows serious again. She states the most important fact. Despite its strength, the spirit they just exorcised was not him, the one responsible for her sister's death. Gatsuji agrees that it's a tough break and asks what's next. His hand resting on the hilt of his sword, Gatsuji shows no sign of stopping. He immediately asks if they have any other jobs lined up, ready to continue the hunt without a moment's rest. The chapter opens with a traumatic flashback. A giant, monstrous foot comes crashing down, as a small child cowers in the corner of a room, bracing for impact. A close-up reveals the terrified, crying face of the young boy, Haruto. He desperately pleads for the assault to stop as a sharp, claw-like appendage swings towards him. His voice echoes his desperate plea, "Don't hit Mom, please." The nightmare fades, and the scene transitions to the present day. In a messy room, the exorcist Rokuro Gotuji lies asleep in bed. The alarm clock shows 8:02 a.m. as Gotuji groggily wakes up, complaining about a pounding headache from the previous night's drinks. He struggles to get out of bed, still feeling the effects of the melatonin he took. In a moment of quiet ritual, Gotuji is shown with his hands together in prayer before a simple, well-prepared breakfast of grilled fish and rice, a stark contrast to his otherwise chaotic lifestyle. Later, in the car, his partner Yuruka, clad in her signature bunny girl outfit, teases him about not cooking for himself. Gotuji retorts that their morning routines are practically the same, both ending with unhealthy choices. Putting their banter aside, Gotuji asks about their job for the day. Yuruka checks her notes and informs him that their next case is at a hospital where the night shift has reported hearing mysterious footsteps. As they head to the job, Yuruka tries to lighten the mood, excitedly asking Gotuji to check out her new colored contacts. Just then, a small, fish-like spirit materializes outside the car window. Without a moment's hesitation, Gotuji springs into action. In a dynamic flurry of motion, he leans out of the car and swiftly cuts down the spirit with his sword. Gotuji lands gracefully on the pavement, having jumped out of the moving vehicle to dispatch the spirit. He stands with his sword, the threat now neutralized. Yuruka slams on the brakes, furious at his recklessness. She yells at him for acting cool and jumping out of a moving car, then immediately asks if he's injured, her anger quickly turning to concern. A poignant image flashes through, showing Gotuji gently holding the small, crying Haruto from the earlier flashback, revealing a protective connection between the exorcist and the tormented child. The scene shifts to a park, where Gotuji and Yuruka consult with two adults. Later, they sit with Haruto, who looks at them with pleading eyes and asks, "Can you save my mom too?" Tears welling up, Haruto confesses that he could always see the spirit that was tormenting his mother, but no one else could. Yuruka listens, her expression softening as she asks how long he's had this ability. Haruto's situation reminds Gotuji of something his sister used to say: "Evil spirits are naturally drawn to those who have the ability to see them, making them the primary targets." A look of shared determination passes between Gotuji and Yuruka. They are the only ones who can exorcise these spirits. It is their duty to save the thousands of people haunted by them. Clinging to Yuruka for comfort, Haruto asks where their exorcism job is located. Gotuji watches them, his resolve hardening as he prepares for the task ahead. The scene cuts to the job site, a dark and foreboding hospital hallway. Gotuji stands alone, surrounded by massive, menacing snake-like spirits slithering along the walls and ceiling. Meanwhile, following their plan, Yuruka arrives at a house and calls out that she's coming in. The door is opened by Haruto, who calmly lets her inside. In a flashback explaining their current separation, Yuruka seems surprised by the decision to split up. Gotuji calmly instructs her to check on the boy's house while he takes the hospital, confirming the child's name is Haruto. Yuruka questions the strategy. Gotuji explains that since the hospital might already have casualties, it's more efficient to start with the known, contained situation at Haruto's house first. He elaborates on the tactical advantage. Yuruka will deal with the known problem, Haruto's house, allowing him to focus his efforts on the unknown and potentially more dangerous threat at the hospital. This way, he concludes they can be more efficient and ultimately save more lives. Understanding his logic, Yuruka agrees to the plan with a simple, determined all right. Back in the present, Yuruka stands inside Haruto's house, reflecting on how long it's been since she's worked a case solo. Admitting she's grown used to Gotuji handling almost everything, her thoughts are cut short as her senses flare up. She detects a single spirit inside the house and prepares to confront it, announcing, "All right, let's do this." She readies her blade and enters the room, but finds it empty. "Wait, where'd it go?" she wonders aloud, her guard up. Her eyes then fall upon a small, peculiar keychain dangling from a wooden box on a nearby altar, and she realizes with a jolt that the spiritual presence has vanished into it. Yuruka turns her attention to Haruto, asking about his mother. The boy clutches a wooden box, the very one with the strange keychain attached, and confirms her suspicions with a simple "yeah." Haruto holds the box tightly, his voice trembling as he explains that his mom promised she would always be with him, that he wouldn't be alone. Yuruka's eyes widen in realization. The box contains his mother's ashes, and the spirit is tied to them. The scene cuts to a stark, artistic image of Gotuji, his face serene but splattered with blood. He's surrounded by the fish-like spirits from before, symbolizing his own ongoing battle. Suddenly, the charm on the ash box transforms into a large, grotesque, cartoon-like spirit. It floats menacingly in the air, and Yuruka instinctively calls out Haruto's name in alarm. A quick cutaway shows Gotuji at the hospital, his expression focused and determined as he finishes his own fight, wiping blood from his face. The view from Gotuji's perspective shows the carnage in the hospital hallway, now littered with defeated spirits. As he looks on, the focus shifts back to Yuruka, implying he can sense the trouble she's in. Back at the house, the spirit unleashes its power, violently throwing Yuruka across the room. She gasps in pain as Haruto screams out for her, calling her "Nei-chan" or "Big Sister." The smug-looking spirit gloats, pointing to a diagram of the house as if taking credit for the haunting. Yuruka, struggling to recover, recognizes its immense strength. Lying battered on the floor, Yuruka admits to herself that she's out of her league. With a touch of grim humor, she thinks that the spirit is so strong she might not live to buy new colored contacts, before screaming in pain. The scene momentarily flashes back to a more peaceful time. A younger Gotuji stands with a woman, likely his sister Irika, as they discuss their plans for a summer trip that never happened. The spirit attacks again, but in a display of her nonchalant personality, Yuruka takes a moment amidst the chaos to casually check her phone as if nothing is happening. Seeing Yuruka in peril, Haruto musters his courage and shouts at the monster, calling it a spineless blob in an attempt to defend her. Inspired by Haruto's bravery, Yuruka rises to her feet. With a defiant smirk, she taunts the spirit, telling it not to act tough if it can't even kill a single woman, and challenges it to fight her head-on. The spirit, enraged by her taunts, lunges at her. Yuruka braces for the blow, her mind focused on one thing: getting Haruto out of there safely. The terrified boy continues to cry out for her. As the spirit's massive fist descends, Yuruka screams at herself to stop overthinking and just focus on the fight, putting everything else out of her mind for the sake of survival. Just as the battle reaches its climax, an unexpected sound interrupts the chaos. The ding-dong of the doorbell echoes through the house, freezing everyone in place. The fight comes to a dead stop. The spirit, Yuruka, and Haruto all turn towards the front door, confused by the interruption. The source of the interruption is revealed in the most bizarre way possible. Gotoji hangs from the balcony, a strange box over his head, readying his sword. It's a life-saving ding-dong ditch. In a flash, Gotoji crashes through the window and slices the powerful spirit clean in half. He lands coolly as the creature cracks and disintegrates, leaving Yuruka and Haruto speechless. With the threat eliminated, Gotoji stands amidst the wreckage, his face splattered with the spirit's remains. Yuruka can only stare and utter his name as he calmly wipes his blade. After the intense battle, Yuruka sits with Haruto on the floor and breaks the tension with a joke, commenting on the bad influence of doing a ding-dong ditch at her age. Gotoji reports that he has secured the hospital and asks if Yuruka and Haruto are all right. Despite her battered state, Yuruka responds with a simple, annoyed, "Oi," clearly irritated by his overly casual demeanor. To everyone's astonishment, the bisected spirit speaks, complaining that it hurts. The creature is furious that Gotoji made it bleed, while Gotoji simply seems intrigued that it can talk. Unmoved by its comical cries of pain, Gotoji calmly proceeds to interrogate the dying entity. He asks if it knows of a specific spirit called Ikamiki, but the creature, in its panic, yells back that it has no idea what he's talking about. "Thought so," Gotoji replies, his line of questioning at a dead end. Seeing no more use for the creature, he prepares to perform the final rites of exorcism. "Well," he says, looking down at the spirit, "this is the end for you." Gotoji performs a cleansing ritual, a dense spiritual energy swirling around him. He turns to Yuruka, asking if she has a headache, but she brushes it off, insisting that he's the one who needs a break. Gotoji dismisses her concern, stating he's fine since he's not the one bleeding. He then casually prods the remains of the defeated spirit with his foot, much to Yuruka's annoyance. With the ordeal finally over, a tearful Haruto clutches his mother's ashes and thanks them for everything. Yuruka places a gentle, comforting hand over his. Suddenly, Gotoji turns to them with a startling confession. He says that someday in the future, after they've saved 10,000 lives, he wants them to save him last. His words trigger a memory. In a flashback, a smiling woman, Irika, teases a younger Gotoji about his serious expression, asking if he's in debt. He simply tells her to listen. In the flashback, Irika's cheerful facade fades as she makes a quiet, heartbreaking confession to him. "I'm scared of dying." She continues, voicing her existential fears. What will happen? Where will she go? Will there be nothing? These thoughts keep her up at night. Gotoji listens intently, the weight of her words settling on him. Looking at him with a fragile smile, Irika asks him to believe with her in the afterlife, wondering aloud if her fear makes her a coward. Back in the present, Gotoji explains his strange request to a stunned Yuruka. He wants to believe in an afterlife so he won't be scared anymore, a place where he can wait for her and Irika. The scene returns to the past, where a young Gotoji makes a solemn vow to Irika. He declares that he will get stronger, strong enough to protect her. The memory of that promise and the image of Irika's charm, a symbol of his vow, are etched into his mind. He stands silently in the present, the past weighing heavily on him. A symbolic image shows a hand reaching out and covering the funeral charm, representing Irika's death and the burden of the promise Gotoji now carries alone. Gotoji gently pats Haruto's head, a rare moment of tenderness. Haruto and Yuruka look on, still processing his deeply personal and sorrowful confession. Gotoji offers a simple "hang in there" to the boy. The three of them sit together in the aftermath, a moment of quiet solidarity against the backdrop of a somber, cloudy sky. Sometime later, As Gotuji and Yuruka walk along a bridge, he's still thinking about the boy, wondering aloud how Haruto is holding up after everything he went through. Yuruka tries to reassure him, saying the kid seemed okay. The conversation shifts back to their ongoing mission, as she reports there's still no trace of the spirit they're hunting. Gotuji begins to suggest there are other ways to find it, but he's cut off by Yuruka's phone ringing, signaling an incoming call. A man's voice on the line bluntly tells them they need to talk and to make time. Gotuji asks who the man, Hata, is, noting that Yuruka seems familiar with him. Yuruka snaps back at the accusation that she's been slacking, asserting that she's an exorcist too. In the background, the caller, Hata, stands ominously in the water below. She explains to Gotuji that Hata was a colleague of Irika-san's. The statement is paired with a visceral image of a bloody, violent exorcism, hinting at their shared past. Yuruka looks off, lost in thought. The days may be long past, but the memories of Irika, seen here with a gentle smile, are still fresh in her mind. A new figure makes a dramatic entrance. It's Hata, a man with a crude scar across his mouth, who greets them with a casual yo, while a defeated spirit is impaled on his shoulder. The scene implies a confrontation has just occurred. Hata stands over the exhausted Gotuji and Yuruka, curtly telling them to move it or they'll be next, suggesting he ambush them as a test. Yuruka is furious at Hatan's aggressive introduction, yelling that it's the worst first impression ever. Hata coldly retorts that he was testing their skills and found them to be real trash. Hata sits down, nonchalantly saying it's been a while. He claims he hasn't been avoiding them, hinting at a complicated history and an unspoken reason for his sudden reappearance. Hata continues to berate them, his expression one of pure disdain as he tells them they've been fooling around far too much. He reveals that their unauthorized activities got him sent by the main temple. Yuruka complains that he made her miss the debut of a new slot machine, while Gotuji cheekily asks if he saved any cash. Yuruka asks for clarification on the main temple, and Hata explains that it's the ancient organization that oversees all exorcists, operating on unspoken rules, territories, and centuries of tradition. Hata angrily accuses them of stomping all over those sacred rules with their freelance work. Gotuji calmly asks if Hata's appearance is a form of punishment, to which he replies, "Pretty much." He then presents them with an official mission notice from the main temple. It's an order for Rokuro Gotuji to exorcise a powerful spirit known as the Gashidakuro as penance for his violations. Yuruka's face pales as she reads the notice. She tells Gotuji that the Gashidakuro is no joke. 20 elite exorcists from the main temple have already died trying to defeat it. This isn't a mission. It's a death sentence. Hata doesn't deny the danger. However, he adds with a surprising hint of confidence. But if anyone can pull it off, it's Gotuji. Hata continues his verbal assault, belittling Gotuji's tiny clan and bringing up Yuruka's past, noting she ditched her own family. He dismisses their personal crusade as wishy-washy crap. He then lays out the strategic advantage of this suicide mission. If Gotuji succeeds in taking out the Gashidakuro, the main temple will be forced to finally take him seriously. Hata dangles the ultimate prize. Once Gotuji has the temple's respect, he'll gain access to the high-level intel he needs. Hata twists the knife, asking, "Don't you want to avenge Irika?" As he watches them walk away, Hata offers one last piece of grim advice. If Gotuji accepts this mission, he must go all in, putting his life and everything else on the line. Gotuji is silent, his profile taut with tension. The weight of Hata's words, and the chance to avenge Irika, hangs heavily in the air as he considers the impossible choice. The scene shifts to a rooftop where the three exorcists stand. In the distance, the colossal, skeletal head of the Gashidakuro looms over the city. When Yuruka asks for the plan, Gotuji's answer is a single, chilling word, "Kill." Yuruka confronts Hata, demanding to know why he manipulated Gotuji. Hata turns the question back on her, asking if she's trying to stop him from seeking revenge. Yuruka confirms that, yes, she is. Looking at the impossible situation before them, Yuruka expresses her frustration, stating that this whole thing, the mission, the revenge, makes no sense at all. Hata observes her, then makes a comparison. He notes that Yuruka is straightforward, which he sees as a great quality, but she is not quite like Irika. Annoyed by the comparison, Yuruka asks what he means. Hata simply adds that Irika, unlike her, was a complete mystery. The scene flashes back to a junkyard, where a younger Gotuji and Hata listen to Irika passionately rant about how capitalism is the true engine of the country. Irika continues her tirade, lamenting how her father died penniless. A bored-looking Gotuji calls her a brat for being so dramatic, while Hata asks her to get to the point. She then poses a philosophical question. If she were to become rich, would the suffering of the poor still feel like someone else's problem? In the flashback, Gotuji seems annoyed by her idealistic rambling, telling her not to ruin the mood. Yet even then, her name is on his lips. Back in the present, Hata reflects on Irika. He acknowledges she was a dreamer with the talent to back it up, but her inner demons were stronger. He admits he couldn't understand this imbalance until the day she died. Hata believes Gotuji already understands this harsh reality. He reasons that if Gotuji is still charging forward, there must be a purpose behind it, leaving them no choice but to support him. Yuruka is lost in a memory, her expression softening as she recalls the past. She thinks to herself that Gotuji was closer to Irika than anyone else. A quiet, intimate flashback shows Irika sitting on the floor, carefully mending Gotuji's torn clothing as he stands and watches over her, a testament to their close bond. The scene flashes back again to a time when Yuruka was also part of the clan. She watches a younger Gotuji sleeping and complains about his laziness, but Irika defends him, telling Yuruka that she's too soft. In another memory, Irika speaks to a battered but determined young Gotuji. She tells him that because their clan is small, they have no choice but to be stronger than everyone else. The flashback continues, with Irika noting to Gotuji that Yuruka hasn't been taking on exorcism jobs lately, hinting at the difficult path they all walk. Irika reminds him that while Yuruka's life is her own to live, their lives as exorcists are meant for fighting. She warns him not to overdo it, as their work is a matter of life and death. A striking image from the past shows a younger Gotuji and Irika, side by side and splattered with blood, united in their grim duty after a difficult battle. After a successful job, Irika praises him. Gotuji seems to hesitate before bringing up something that happened the other day, his expression serious. In what would be their final conversation, Irika reveals she has received a solo mission from the main temple to hunt a powerful spirit named Ikemiki. The details, she says, are classified. She confesses her profound sense of powerlessness, weighed down by the countless lives she can't save. She hopes that by exorcising this one powerful spirit, she can save even more. With a heavy but determined heart, she vows that she is not giving up and will take down the spirit, no matter the cost. Her final words to him are a simple, "See you later." As she turns to leave, Gotuji lies on the ground, defeated and unable to stop her from walking toward her doom. Back in the present, the pieces click into place for Yuruka. She turns to Hata, her voice trembling, and asks the dreadful question. "So, you're saying my ending will be the same as my sister's?" Hata is completely baffled by her conclusion. Yuruka frantically explains that since he said she was similar to Irika, she fears she is destined for the same tragic end. Hata cuts through her panic with a single, grounding truth. He points out that unlike Irika, who died on a solo mission, you and Gotuji, you're both still alive, aren't you? Hata's words strike a chord, leaving Yuruka speechless. The scene then transitions to a hand preparing incense, a somber and final confirmation of Irika's fate. The camera reveals a funeral altar, adorned with a smiling portrait of Irika. Gotuji performs a ritual, his hand placing the offering, his grief palpable and enduring. On the rooftop, Gotuji, Yuruka, and Hato stand together, looking up at the sky as the city darkens around them. Hata notes that evil spirits from all over the area are beginning to gather, drawn to the immense power of the Gashidokuro. The sky fills with their eerie forms. Hata's challenge echoes in Gotuji's mind. Go all in, put everything on the line, and take out the Gashidakuro to force the main temple to take him seriously. His eyes burn with resolve. The chapter concludes with a breathtaking and terrifying view from the rooftop. Yuruka looks on as the monstrous Gashidakuro looms over the city, its skeletal face a horrifying grin against the night sky, ready for a battle that seems utterly impossible. In the middle of the city, people on the street look up in confusion. Something massive seems to be gathering in the sky, but when one person checks their phone, there's nothing there, leading to frustration and disbelief. The cause of the commotion is revealed. A horrifyingly massive evil spirit, a Gashidakuro, towers over the city buildings. Standing before it, unfazed, is the exorcist Gatsuji, ready for a confrontation. The Gashidakuro glares down with ancient, wrathful eyes. In response, Gatsuji stares back up, his own eyes filled with calm and unwavering determination. From a distance, Gatsuji's partner, Yuruka, watches with a serious expression. The scene cuts between her tense gaze, the Gashidakuro's monstrous face, and Gatsuji's focused profile. Without warning, the Gashidakuro swings its enormous, eye-covered hand, smashing it directly into the side of a skyscraper, sending debris raining down. Down below, the civilians who were just looking up in curiosity are now screaming in terror as huge chunks of the building plummet towards them. In the chaos, someone cries out for Hata-san. Responding to the call, the third member of the team, Hata, appears. With a stitched mouth and a cold expression, he utters a single word as he moves to intercept the danger. Die. With a powerful strike, Hata seemingly disintegrates the falling debris. A small, rabbit-like mascot cheers, exclaiming that it was a nice, loud sound and a good first hit. The scene shifts to a rooftop where Yuruka, now revealed in a full bunny girl outfit, taunts the Gashidakuro. She challenges the beast, calling its game of Spot the Difference a real brain teaser, before the monster threatens to hunt her down. Meanwhile, Hata and his associate discuss their strategy. Recognizing the difficulty of the situation, they decide to stick to their original plan, which Hata accepts with a simple understood. Gatsuji stares up at the colossal evil spirit as his teammates discuss the dire situation. Yuruka notes this is no average spirit and worries about the civilians below, but Gatsuji makes a bold declaration. I will cut it down. Back on the ground, Hata grimly explains their reality to his partner. He states that sealing the place off was impossible, and they entered this fight knowing and expecting there would be casualties. He tells his partner to steel himself for the inevitable. Overhearing this, Gatsuji fiercely rejects Hata's grim prediction. There won't be any, he yells, vowing to protect everyone by making himself the sole target for every single one of the spirit's attacks. Hata's associate is stunned by Gatsuji's reckless plan. Gatsuji then shouts at both him and Hata, ordering them to forget about the main target and focus entirely on protecting the civilians from falling debris. The perspective shifts to the Gashidakuro's point of view, its massive eye looking down upon the streets, the pedestrians appearing like tiny ants from its towering height. The focus returns to the silent confrontation between man and monster, cutting between a close-up of Gatsuji's determined face and the Gashidakuro's swirling, hypnotic eye. The Gashidakuro lets out a roar, its skeletal maw opening wide. In the vast darkness of its mouth, Gatsuji is framed as a lone, small figure, standing his ground against the overwhelming threat. Watching from the sidelines, Hata's partner anxiously asks if Gatsuji can really exorcise this monstrosity. Hata, however, is resolute. He can, he states, adding that he was ready to back him up, but it seems unnecessary. From her vantage point, Yuruka agrees. She admits that, in a straight fight, Gatsuji has the edge on her. She states that if he says he can handle it alone, then that's the deal because he's no fool. Yuruka continues, a slight smile on her face, as she starts listing Gatsuji's quirks to Hata's bewildered partner. She laughs, saying he's the same guy who burns fish just trying to cook it and has a terrible vocabulary. She goes on, explaining how Gatsuji is awkward around strangers and acts like he's carrying a personal vendetta. And, she adds, let's not forget he can't even drive a car. Hata's partner just listens, trying to understand. Yuruka's expression softens as she finishes her list. She apologizes, musing that perhaps she doesn't know him as well as she thought, especially since he's apparently been riding shotgun his whole life. She seems genuinely impressed by his current display of strength. Hata's partner asks what the plan is now. Yuruka looks on with a determined gaze, telling him they're not just going to stand around and watch, implying it's their turn to act. The battle finally begins. As Gatsuji charges forward, an explosion rocks the street, forcing the terrified civilians to shriek and run for their lives while he presses his attack. The Gashidokuro retaliates, bringing its massive arm down in a devastating swipe that carves a path of destruction through the city, putting immense pressure on Gatsuji. Gatsuji is pushed onto the defensive, dodging a massive swipe from the Gashidokuro. He grimly notes that while no one has been hit yet, it's only a matter of time. He needs to exorcise it now, but there's no opening in sight. Hata frantically yells at Gatsuji from a distance, telling him to fall back because he won't survive if he keeps taking those blows. Gatsuji, however, remains resolute, thinking that even losing an arm is a necessary sacrifice. Ignoring the plea to retreat, Gatsuji puts his absolute faith in his partner, refusing to fall back. He says to himself, "Yuruka will make an opening for you. Trust me." Gatsuji calls out his partner's name. The scene cuts to Yuruka sitting calmly on a rooftop overlooking the city, as if she was just waiting for her cue. The rabbit mascot tells Yuruka that it's time for the wisdom of manjusri, but nervously points out there are only 2 of them. Yuruka seems to be in a trance, calling out to Hata-san. Yuruka asks her companion if they can really pull this off. Hata's voice replies, asking what she thinks. After a moment of hesitation, she answers with a doubtful, maybe. As Hata and his partner are seen in the background dealing with another threat, Yuruka's confidence returns. She clenches her small device and declares, "Actually, yeah, we just might." Wisdom of manjusri. It is. A stream of dark energy flows from the rooftop where Yuruka is stationed, signaling the activation of her powerful ability. The Gashidokuro continues its rampage, slamming its fists down. Civilians scream as they narrowly dodge the destructive blows. Yuruka explains that evil spirits always target those who can see them first. This is the tragic reason why the most frequent victims are those with the gift or curse of spiritual sight. In a flashback, Hata's partner asks Gatsuji to try and sense the spirits before they attack. Gatsuji bluntly admits he can't sense them and leaves it to his partner, who grimly notes that the spirits seem to be multiplying. Activating her ability, Yuruka creates a brilliant flash of light in the darkness. She declares that she possesses sharper eyes than Gatsuji as she concentrates on her device, creating the opening he needs. The wisdom of manjusri manifests as a gigantic, ethereal form of a woman, which the Gashidokuro turns to face. This spectral figure looks down at the battlefield and says, "Nice one," signaling to Gatsuji that his chance has arrived. Thanks to Yuruka's ability, a vulnerability appears on the Gashidokuro. Gatsuji seizes the moment, leaping and piercing the weak spot with his sword. From the ground, Hata cheers but urges him to finish it. The attack creates a massive, swirling vortex of energy that erupts from the Gashidokuro's body. Hata's partner exclaims at the noise, worried that the resulting explosion will destroy everything in its path. The Gashidokuro begins to fall apart. From another rooftop, Hata and his partner unleash a secondary attack to neutralize the collapsing monster and prevent further damage. As the dust settles, Yuruka reflects that all she did was watch from the sidelines. Gatsuji, wounded but standing, looks on as the massive evil spirit finally disintegrates. Yuruka looks over with a satisfied smile, asking Gatsuji if her support wasn't half bad. In the panels below, we see Gatsuji looking back, acknowledging her critical role in their victory. Back in their office after the battle, a blood-spattered Gatsuji sincerely thanks Yuruka for having his back. Meanwhile, Hata and his partner are seen comically demanding that Gatsuji treat them all to yakiniku as a reward. Hata's partner remarks on their complete success. 0 casualties. From the street below, Hata looks up at the spot where the monster once stood and gives a simple, satisfied acknowledgement. Nice job. Alone in the office, Gatsuji reflects on the intense battle. He looks out the window with a calm, almost wistful expression, thinking to himself, "You were seriously badass, Gashidakuro." Later, Yuruka and Hata meet up. Yuruka is checking a text from Hata's partner about Gatsuji's condition, which bluntly states he's going for a full checkup. She complains about the lack of emojis and detail, but confirms to Hata that his injuries aren't life-threatening. Sometime later, Yuruka and Hata are at a pub. As Hata sips his drink, Yuruka casually asks him if he drinks. Now clearly drunk, Yuruka begins to passionately vent her frustrations about Gatsuji. She complains about his all-black outfit and how he once bluntly told her she really enjoys life, a comment that clearly annoyed her. She continues her rant, insisting that she has her own problems too. Hata, however, seems to have completely tuned her out, instead commenting on how good the shishamo is, much to her annoyance. Hata dismisses her, saying he doesn't want to listen to a woman's complaints and just wants to go play the new slot machines. Hurt by his words, Yuruka's demeanor changes as she retorts, "I guess I'm just some dead weight. I'm so sick of hearing that." Hata gets annoyed at her sudden self-pity. Yuruka angrily shouts back at him, declaring that women are creatures of endless overthinking, and accuses him of thinking she was dead weight all along. The drunken anger fades into somber confession. Yuruka stares into her drink and finally voices her deepest insecurity, admitting that, in the end, she feels she can't ever measure up to her sister. She continues, lamenting that she could never be a selfless saint like her sister was. Hata, completely missing the serious tone, tries to order food, causing Yuruka's partner to yell at him for not listening. Finally dropping the detached act, Hata gets serious. He quietly states that her sister, Irika, also couldn't be like Yuruka, implying that they were two different people with different strengths. Hata delivers the harsh, but necessary truth. "You are not her and you never will be," he says, looking at her with piercing eyes. "She's already gone." The words hang in the air as Yuruka sits in silence. The heavy moment is broken when Gatsuji unexpectedly shows up, having snuck out of the hospital. Hata is shocked, asking him what he's doing there and what's wrong with his injuries. Gatsuji coolly replies that they're not the kind of thing that just disappears. Yuruka's partner tries to steer the conversation to love gossip, but Hata cuts in, his tone suddenly serious. He turns to Yuruka and asks if she has ever heard of something called Ikamiki. Yuruka says she's never heard the name. Hata then reveals a shocking piece of information. Her sister, Irika-san, was tasked by the main temple to take down this Ikamiki. Yuruka is speechless, as nothing comes to mind. Hata continues, explaining his theory. If this unknown entity was powerful enough to kill a skilled exorcist like Irika, then he can guess what it is they're dealing with, a highly evolved humanoid evil spirit. He begins to explain the horrifying evolution of evil spirits. As they become more complex in form, they grow stronger, but their evolution goes far beyond mere appearance. Hata elaborates that their complexity develops on the inside as well. The key to their higher evolution is the development of a brain. As they evolve, these evil spirits develop intelligence. Other organs begin to form, and with each stage of increased complexity, they inch closer and closer to a perfect human form. Yuruka listens, horrified and captivated. Later, Gatsuji pays for everyone's food. Outside, Hata and his partner marvel at the fact that they're having Gatsuji's discharge party on the same day as the incident, but agree that it just makes it better. As they prepare to part ways, Yuruka and her partner thank Hata for the meal. Yuruka formally states that she will consider this his reward for their successful mission. Hata seems to accept this with a nod. Walking home, Gatsuji reflects on their victory. He thinks to himself that achieving 0 casualties against a monster like the Gashidakuro is a result he can be proud of. Gatsuji and Yuruka tell Hata to spare them the details, knowing the main temple will be contacting him soon. Hata sighs that they wear him out, and the other two tease him, calling him a brat. Hata grumbles that he doesn't want to deal with any of them for a while, turning his back. Gatsuji smirks, calling him a classic tsundere as he walks away. Gatsuji admits that, jokes aside, he appreciates them all. Yuruka then asks if he wants to go to a pachinko parlor, and he seems to consider tagging along, asking her to wait up. As they walk down a quiet alley, Gatsuji and Yuruka suddenly stop. Before them, a person lies dead on the pavement, and a mysterious woman stands over the body. Just as a news alert about a terrorist attack flashes on Gatsuji's phone, the woman coolly states that she has no interest in the deceased. A look at her bloody hands reveals the lie. The woman turns and walks away, showing off a distinctive pattern on her jacket. In the background, Yuruka is so overwhelmed by the sight that she doubles over and vomits. The humanoid evil spirit smiles serenely, a stark contrast to Yuruka, who is physically sick from the horrific scene. Gatsuji calls out his partner's name in concern. The spirit offers a twisted justification for her actions. She floats upside down over her victim's astral projection, explaining, "This person had terminal cancer, you know?" implying her murder was an act of mercy. Yuruka looks on in stunned horror. Gatsuji, his expression cold and hard, steps forward to confront the killer, asking the question that will define their next battle. "Are you an evil spirit?" Gatsuji begins his rebuttal, his hands open in a gesture of presentation. "Well, let me just put it this way," he starts, preparing to challenge her twisted philosophy. The evil spirit casually sits and lays out a twisted hypothetical. She asks him to imagine a loved one with terminal cancer. Wouldn't he, despite the heartbreak, eventually come to think that it couldn't be helped? She's equating her murders to accepting an inevitability. She leans in, claiming with false sincerity, "I'm just trying to ease the pain for you, that's all." Yuruka, still in the background, can only watch, horrified by this declaration that murder is a form of social mercy. Gatsuji is so utterly disgusted by her words that he physically retches, unable to stomach her perverse reasoning. From a high angle, the spirit looks down on the alley, her influence spreading like a dark stain. She taunts Gatsuji, attempting to find a twisted common ground. "You wanted to save everyone, didn't you?" Gatsuji repeats his question, his voice cold and steady. "Are you an evil spirit?" This time, she gives a direct answer, her foot landing softly as she confirms, "I am." With a chillingly gentle expression, she adds, "But it's not like I'm trying to be evil or anything." Her complex and disturbing morality hangs in the air, juxtaposed with a breaking news report of the chaos unfolding in the city. The news report flashes across the screen again, detailing the terrorist attack in Furiko Town and the resulting 10-kilometer lockdown. The media chaos serves as a backdrop to the quiet, personal horror of their confrontation. The image of a dark, empty alley is overlaid with the news report, setting a desolate and tense mood for the battle that is about to begin. Suddenly, the alley is filled with a web of razor-thin threads, the source of the news report's terrorist attack. The evil spirit is revealed, sitting comfortably on one of the threads as if she is the spider in this web. Gatsuji looks up, his face a mask of cold fury. The spirit has trapped him in her domain, turning the narrow alley into her personal killing ground. Surrounded by the debris from her attack, the spirit smiles down on Gatsuji with amusement. "You're bothered, huh?" she taunts, clearly enjoying his anger. She continues to psychoanalyze him, crouching on her thread and claiming to know that he's stronger than he lets on. In response, Gatsuji unsheathes his sword, ready for her attack. The spirit accurately dissects his weakness, pointing out how he was constantly worried about the people around him during the fight with the Gashidakuro. She continues her psychological assault, asking if he'd mind if she told him what she noticed. She delivers her final, cutting observation. "You seem like you're suffocating under the weight of it all." She has seen straight through to the core of his heroic burden. "That's why I'm doing you a favor," she declares. With a swipe of her threads, she clears the area of all obstacles. "Everyone around you is gone now, so do whatever you want." She has created a perfect, isolated arena, tempting him to fight without restraint. Having escaped the spirit's initial attack, Yuruka pants for breath, her hands sweaty and trembling as she tries to recover from the shock. Yuruka looks out over a field of rubble created by the spirit's attack and vomits again from the stress and horror of the situation. In the middle of the destruction, Gatsuji kneels over the body of a civilian, another victim of the evil spirit's rampage. The spirit appears before him, mockingly asking what he's doing. She points out that he could have dodged her attack and that he's tending to nothing more than a corpse. Gatsuji defiantly retorts, "So what if it is?" From a distance, Yuruka looks on with a knowing smile, anticipating his response. Kneeling protectively over the body, Gatsuji finishes his thought, a powerful declaration of his morality. "Does that mean I should stop caring for them?" The evil spirit pauses, telling him to wait there. Gatsuji looks up, his face bruised and bloody but his gaze unwavering. Surrounded by rubble, his resolve is stronger than ever. Gatsuji states his intentions clearly. First, he will move the body to safety and retrieve his sword. Then, he will do whatever he wants. The spirit, with a calm, unnerving smile, agrees to his terms. No problem. After the intense battle, Yuruka stands exhausted on a rooftop. She takes a deep breath, a sense of relief washing over her as she realizes the overwhelming psychic noise in her head has finally stopped. Walking through the alley, Yuruka feels a profound sense of relief, glad that the nauseating psychic interference is gone. However, she's also filled with uncertainty, wondering what she should do now. A close-up on an eye hints at her troubled thoughts or perhaps an unseen observer. Yuruka looks out over a vast wasteland of rubble, the devastating aftermath of the battle. The ground is littered with the bodies of the victims. Amidst the destruction, she spots a lone figure sitting quietly on a pile of debris. Yuruka's eyes widen in shock and horror. To her disbelief, the bodies scattered across the rubble begin to stir and rise, reanimating before her very eyes. The mysterious figure from the rubble, a girl in a school uniform, turns to face Yuruka and asks, "You came back." Yuruka, still wearing her bunny ears, acknowledges her, confirming the timing is perfect, as the other girl is still waiting. With a calm yet unsettling smile, the mysterious girl leans in and suggests to Yuruka, "So, why don't we have a little chat?" In a bizarre turn of events, the girl sits on Yuruka amidst the rubble. She calmly begins toying with Yuruka's hair, leaving Yuruka speechless and confused by the strange intimacy of the gesture. The girl calmly reassures a tense Yuruka, telling her not to worry. "I'm not gonna kill you, okay?" she says. "So just relax and keep doing your thing." As one of the reanimated bodies lies nearby, the girl attempts to make small talk. "Nice weather, don't you think?" she asks with a serene smile. Yuruka can only stare back in utter bewilderment, muttering, "What?" The mysterious girl apologizes for her odd attempt at conversation, admitting with a detached air, "Conversations, I learned about them from reading books." "Oh right, I'm supposed to compliment you first, right?" While reanimated bodies float ominously in the background, the girl delivers her compliment. "Your ears are cute," she says with a slight smile. Yuruka, still confused, quietly asks, "Which ones?" The girl laughs it off, saying she was just kidding. "Sorry, Yuruka-chan, but I'm not really that interested in you," she states, leaning close. "What piques my interest, though, is Gatsuji-kun." Yuruka is left wondering what is wrong with this strange person. The girl's expression turns sharp as she continues to probe. "Even someone as clueless about people as me can see it," she says. "Normal people would not risk their lives for a dead body, right?" Yuruka is flabbergasted by the accusation. She directs Yuruka's attention to the body of Gatsuji, pointing out that he had been protecting one of the other corpses and now has a severe wound on his back. "So why?" she asks, leaving Yuruka to question Gatsuji's motives. Yuruka admits that she'd like to know the answer to that herself. The mysterious girl smirks. "You guys are a couple, but you don't know?" In the background, we see Gatsuji lying amongst the other bodies. Yuruka furiously denies the suggestion. "I'm not his girlfriend." she shouts, clarifying that they are merely childhood friends. The girl listens with a knowing, skeptical smile, asking what their relationship is if not romantic. What? No, absolutely not, Yuruka exclaims, completely rejecting the idea of having romantic feelings. Meanwhile, Gatsuji, who was presumed to be just another body in the rubble, lets out a quiet heh, revealing he has been conscious the whole time. With his sword in hand, Gotuji rises from the rubble. His expression is grim as he announces, "It's done," signifying the completion of his exorcism ritual. The girl praises Gotuji for his work. He then gives Yuruka an order. "Yuruka, you should stay with the bodies. The evil spirit and I will move to the other side." The girl finally introduces herself. "Tsubaki, that is my name," she says to Gotuji. She then tells him to follow her, leaving a stunned and hesitant Yuruka behind. As she walks away with Gotuji, Tsubaki gives Yuruka a final, dismissive wave. "Don't hold it against me," she says nonchalantly, while Yuruka stares back with an expression of pure terror. The scene shifts to the perspective of someone watching through binoculars. An unseen observer is shocked to see Tsubaki, a perfect humanoid form. "I have never seen anything like it," they exclaim, then realize with surprise that the spirit is a girl with a defined E-line, wondering if she's just going to die. The observer continues their commentary, noting that the battle is about to start. They acknowledge that while the humanoid spirit is unexpectedly strong, the exorcist Gotuji is on another level entirely. "Man, this is going to be a bloodbath," they predict. Through the binoculars, the observers identify the exorcist as Rokuroku Gatsuji, just as Hata had described. One of them immediately comments on how attractive he is, admiring his E-line, while their more cynical partner simply mutters, "Just die already." However, their morbid wish seems premature. As they watch, they notice an abnormality in his stance. "But wait, doesn't his movement seem a bit off?" one asks. The other spots the wound and grimly concludes, "Oh, he's injured. Yeah, he's done for." Through the binoculars, the observers are shocked Gatsuji is still fighting. "But even so, he's still moving like that? What a beast," one says while the other concedes, "Yup, he's down." The first observer wonders if they should help, but their partner coldly laments, "Well, there goes another handsome face," only to be cut short by a sudden "what?" The observers are thrown into confusion by the scene unfolding before them. "Wait, what's happening? What the heck is she doing? Eh?" they shout, completely baffled by Tsubaki's unexpected actions. From the observer's point of view, they watch as Tsubaki begins to remove her clothes. "Why is she taking her clothes off?" one exclaims in disbelief, followed by a crude and confused speculation. "Is she about to turn this into child P***RN? Ha!" The scene cuts to a flashback, a memory from Gatsuji's past. He recalls a young woman lying lifelessly before him. The only thought that comes to his mind is a simple, chilling fact. She's cold. The memory continues, focusing on the deceased woman's face. Gatsuji remembers how she no longer bore a semblance of a person. Her wounds were beyond any hope of healing, and her body had been laid to rest within a coffin. And yet, Gatsuji recalls, "I still yearn to feel her." This painful memory of the girl, Ichikawa Hiromi, fuels a surge of rage as he unleashes a powerful strike with his sword, dark energy exploding from the blow. Gatsuji's memory-fueled attack violently cuts through the air. In the distance, Tsubaki, the apparent target of his rage, simply says, "Sorry," as if apologizing for triggering his trauma. Tsubaki taunts the fallen Gatsuji, who is now clutching his wounded back. "Your back must be killing you, huh?" she remarks. "Well, in the end, you couldn't even move properly? Or maybe that's not the case." Leaning over a piece of rubble, Tsubaki continues her psychological prodding of the injured Gatsuji, asking him pointedly, "Were you hesitating?" Tsubaki voices her theory for his hesitation. "Was it because you thought I looked human?" However, she quickly dismisses the idea, concluding, No, that cannot be the reason. To prove her point, Tsubaki begins unbuttoning her shirt. Someone like me, she starts, her hands revealing something not quite human underneath as she declares, could never pass as human. With her shirt open, Tsubaki reveals her true, non-human torso as she sits before the wounded Gatsuji. Looking down at him, she says, I don't even know if I've got what you'd call chromosomes. After a moment of self-reflection, Tsubaki dismisses her own rambling. But hey, maybe I could still count as a girl? She muses, before turning her attention back to Gatsuji and demanding, Hey, explain it to me. Tsubaki gestures to the dead bodies scattered around them, posing a series of philosophical questions to Gatsuji. Why do you even protect the dead? What's left in them that's worth saving? Would you still protect them when they've rotted away? Even if they don't resemble a human anymore? Leaning in closer, her face inches from his, Tsubaki presses him for an answer to her ultimate question. Where do you draw the line? Tell me. Instead of answering with words, Gatsuji suddenly reaches out and pulls Tsubaki into a tight, forceful embrace, catching her completely by surprise. Tsubaki's eyes widen in shock at the unexpected embrace. Gatsuji gently places a hand on the back of her head, prompting her to wonder, wow, are you doing this out of pure sincerity? In a display of his core principle, Gatsuji holds Tsubaki protectively with one arm, while wielding his katana with the other, seemingly shielding her from a threat only he can see. The moment of strange intimacy is broken. Blood drips from Gatsuji's face. Tsubaki has turned the tables, and now holds a small, sharp knife, having seemingly disarmed him. Tsubaki stands over the collapsed Gatsuji, her unnatural torso exposed. She asks with mock concern, You all right? Before immediately answering herself, Of course you aren't. Just as Tsubaki stands victorious, Yuruka appears behind her, her expression grim. You're only human after all, she says, her words directed at the wounded Gatsuji, justifying her intervention. Fueled by Yuruka's sudden appearance, Gatsuji lunges forward in a last-ditch effort, launching another desperate attack against Tsubaki. Tsubaki easily catches Gatsuji's blade, stopping his attack. She looks towards Yuruka with annoyance. You came back. Again, she says, then warns her. Get away from me already. With a knife pressed to Gatsuji's throat, Tsubaki taunts the horrified Yuruka. Or what? She sneers. Do you want to die with him? Yuruka looks down, her expression a mixture of fear and sorrowful resolve. She won't back down, but her reason isn't simple defiance. No, she says quietly, her voice filled with a pained determination that marks the beginning of a heartfelt confession. It's the other way around. Yuruka begins to confess her deepest desires. You know what? She says, the only reason I wear this uniform is because I envy school life. Tears welling in her eyes, Yuruka continues her pained confession. She talks about the simple things she's never had, like making friends and learning things in a classroom. She then looks at Gatsuji and Tsubaki, saying, and the two of you even got to be childhood friends too, right? Before trailing off. With the knife still pressed against Gatsuji's neck, Tsubaki looks at Yuruka with a cold, dismissive smile. She completely ignores the heartfelt confession and simply remarks, That's sweet. Suddenly, Tsubaki pulls back. Don't worry, I'm leaving now, she announces. Looks like more people are about to show up anyway. She offers a half-hearted apology to Yuruka. Sorry about today. I really blew the conversation and a lot of other things. As Tsubaki walks away from the scene of destruction, she muses to herself, maybe I should read a language textbook or something. Yuruka, still reeling from the encounter, calls out, Hey, is Swimmy * any good? Tsubaki pauses and looks back at Yuruka one last time. With a slight, enigmatic smile, she simply says, See ya, before disappearing, leaving Yuruka alone in the rubble. The observers are revealed to be a girl with pigtails named Furin and a giant rabbit mascot named Kazan. She left, Kazan exclaims. Furin decides, All right, shall we go grab Rokuroku Gatsuji? Kazan comically complains, "Huh, we don't need anyone with an E-line face," prompting Furin to retort, "That's way too personal." The scene shifts. Gatsuji slowly wakes up in what appears to be a hospital room. Yuruka is by his side, calling his name. Relieved, she says, "Gatsuji, open your eyes. Ah, you're awake." Later, Gatsuji is sitting up in his hospital bed. The chapter title reads Daydream Invasion. His room has been invaded by Furin and the giant rabbit, Kazan, who is blocking Furin's way. "Move it! You're blocking the way. Scram!" she yells, while Gatsuji mutters, "He that tickles," as the rabbit's fur brushes against him. Gatsuji stares warily at his uninvited guests. Kazan, the rabbit mascot, tries to calm him down. "There's no need to freak out. I'm an exorcist from the main temple. Hey, can you see me?" Kazan explains that he's the one who carried Gatsuji to the hospital. But Gatsuji ignores him, his only concern being for his friend. He looks around the room and asks, "Where's Yuruka?" The scene cuts to Yuruka, standing alone on an outdoor stairwell, looking down at the city with a sad and lonely expression. Furin spots Yuruka from the hallway and calls out to her with a taunting nickname, "Hey, bar girl, your boyfriend's calling." Yuruka looks up, startled. Yuruka politely responds, "Thanks, but we are just childhood friends." This simple correction sends Furin into a rage. "Ugh, so annoying," she screams. Furin launches into a tirade against Yuruka. "Those scars are probably from some sort of plastic surgery, right? And stop hooking guys with that fake-ass face. With your frail look and flawless skin. Godi, D." As Yuruka tries to explain that she isn't wearing makeup, Kazan interrupts to formally introduce himself and his partner. "Greetings, we are exorcists, Furin Kazanin and Kazan Kazanin." Furin yells at him for introducing them on his own. Furin gets right in Yuruka's face, staring her down intensely. "Gatsuji-kun is coming with me," she declares, making her intentions clear. Kazan backs up his partner, telling Yuruka, "We've got some business with him." Yuruka, trying to stand her ground, asks what kind of business it is, but Furin coldly tells her, "That doesn't concern you." Yuruka asks about the evil spirit from the day before, wanting to know what Tsubaki was. Furin dismisses her question entirely. "That person, and Gatsuji-kun, also has nothing to do with you," she says, cutting Yuruka out of the picture completely. Back in the hospital room, Kazan makes his official offer to the recovering Gatsuji. "You should join the main temple," he states plainly. Kazan elaborates on the offer, telling Gatsuji they've always kept an eye on him because he's very strong. He mentions reading Hata's interesting report and says, "It would have been a shame if you died." Furin steps in, getting to the heart of the matter. "You're hunting a particular evil spirit, right?" she asks, her eyes sharp. Kazan mentions vengeance, and Furin confirms the main temple has all the intel he needs and can hook him up. Gatsuji processes the offer. Then, he begins, but Kazan interrupts him. "But there is just one condition," the rabbit mascot says, as Yuruka is seen waiting anxiously in the hallway. From the hospital room doorway, Kazan delivers the ultimatum, loud enough for Yuruka, who is standing right outside, to hear every word. The condition is simple and brutal. "Ditch the girl." Furin's cold voice cuts through the silence, adding the final, crushing blow. In a close-up of her calculating eye, she delivers her assessment of Yuruka, deeming her completely worthless to their cause. She is dead weight. Furin stares Yuruka down, coldly repeating, "Told you, this has nothing to do with you." In the background, Kazan begins to lecture her on the significance of their organization. "The main temple is sacred," he says, "but you probably have no idea how deep its history goes." Kazan continues his pompous speech, emphasizing the main temple's exclusivity. "What, you think the Imperial Palace is just some sort of tourist spot? Or ancient tombs are a place that people can freely wander in? No, only the Chosens can enter," he declares. Looking down on Yuruka with disdain, Kazan delivers the final insult. That's why we have no use for such a feeble rabbit. The scene then cuts back to the hospital room, where Yuruka and Gatsuji are forced to confront the ultimatum. Furin's voice coldly tells Gatsuji, "So now, make your choice." A heavy silence hangs in the air. The panel shows the pained, silent profiles of Gatsuji and Yuruka, each trapped in their own anguish as they face the impossible choice that will define their future. Gatsuji's mind flashes back to his trauma. He sees Yuruka's face, but it's warped by the memory of Ichikawa Hiromi, covered in the same dark, corrupting substance. The haunting words echo in his head. She no longer bears any semblance of a person. He fears Yuruka will suffer the same tragic fate. Crushed by the weight of his past and the fear for Yuruka's future, Gatsuji makes his decision. Hunched over as if in immense pain, he delivers the heartbreaking words, "We're parting ways." Yuruka is shattered. Her mind flashes back to the confrontation with Tsubaki, her defiant words, "No, it's the other way around," now ringing hollow. In the end, despite her efforts, she feels defeated. Standing alone, Yuruka looks out with a quiet, resigned expression. The fight has gone out of her. In the end, nothing changes. She thinks, seemingly accepting her fate. Later, Yuruka returns to Gatsuji's hospital room. He tries to break the heavy silence, asking if she's okay and noting that he's fine. She dismisses his concern for her, her tone flat. Gatsuji, unable to look her in the eye, hunches over in his bed and quietly confirms his decision with a single word, "Yeah." Yuruka stands and watches him, the space between them filled with unspoken pain. But Yuruka's resignation turns to resolve. She clenches her fist, refusing to accept his decision. "You've got to be joking," she says, realizing that Gatsuji is just bones and ashes now. "If we leave it as is, nothing's ever gonna change," she declares, knowing his simple "yeah" won't cut it. With newfound determination shining in her eyes, Yuruka confronts Gatsuji directly. "Let's figure this all out," she proposes, before delivering the chapter's shocking and hopeful final line. "We're going on a date."